Confident personality style is the normal and typical workplace range of a concept that a lot of people will be familiar with, or at least have heard of, and that's narcissism. And narcissism is a word that gets thrown around a lot, not always in the clinical meaning of it. Right? So clinical narcissism has a very specific term and a very specific diagnostic procedure. Whereas when we talk about confident personality style, we can look at that more normal or typical range of it in the workplace. And I want people to be careful about using terms like narcissism in their kind of day-to-day life or work, just because they have really specific meanings, and it's better not to cloud those meanings. And sometimes people use the term narcissist when they really just mean asshole. But when we're looking at confident personality style, that's really interesting just to look along the spectrum of confidence and self-confidence and confidence in oneself and the range of that person's confidence compared with their actual capabilities or abilities. So being confident, especially in the workplace, is something that's often rewarded. Having self-confidence, being self-assured, understanding your own worth and knowing your own abilities within a realistic range is fantastic. That's what you want to do. That's going to make you incredibly successful, and the ability to communicate your own abilities to others, especially in the workplace, is a huge advantage. So most people have a fairly realistic expectation or understanding of their own abilities in relation to what they actually are and how other people see them. Most people have a slightly optimistic view of their own abilities, which is fairly normal and healthy. But then the problems come in when there's a serious gap between how people see themselves and how they actually are, or how people talk about, describe, and try and big up their own abilities and capabilities compared with how they actually are. And when there's a big gap in ability, that's when you see real problems in the workplace. And that's sometimes when you see people getting engaged in all sorts of activities or trying to do stuff to make themselves look better than they are, or to hide what's actually going on, right? So there's no problem with having confidence in yourself. It's great to have confidence in your own abilities, to understand what you can do, to get it done, and be proud of doing good work. That's absolutely healthy, normal behavior that we want to see. But what we don't want to see is people trying to create an image of perfection or idealized work or leadership or what their role is, but that ability and those actual skills and what needs to happen in the job not happening over here. So we see that happening in lots of different organizations. There's a really good recent example with Elizabeth Holmes and that Theranos story of creating a company that was built up to be a multi-billion-dollar company, but there was actually no product behind it, right? It was completely made up. It was founded on lies and, a fake product and something that didn't really work. But there's an entire brand being created around that, and there's a whole ecosystem that develops around that to create the branding and the marketing and the idea of a product that doesn't actually exist, and trying to fool all sorts of people to think there's this brand or this product that exists when there's nothing behind it. So that's what happens often in a narcissism, is someone creates an idealized world that they think they're living in, or an idealized self who they think they should be or they want to be, but the foundation of that person isn't really there. Whatever it is, the qualities, the skills, the actual technical abilities. If we're talking about a company, that's a good example because that product doesn't actually exist. It exists as a brand that someone's trying to create, but the core product or the core company isn't really there. So you get this kind of hollow interior that the narcissism or the overconfident personality style is trying to mask. So it's really interesting when we look at that kind of hollowness of self too, because sometimes people have this idea of who they want to be, but they don't have the capability or ability to quite get there. Most people have realistic expectations of themselves, but some people have a really strong need to create that image without actually doing the groundwork or without having the capacity to succeed in that role or to do the work that's required. So that's when we see a really kind of insecure core with all of the other activities around it trying to mask that insecurity. When we talk about sense of self and self-direction, it's a huge, huge gap between that sense of self or idealized self and the actual self-direction and the path it takes to get there. They're just so far apart that someone spends most of their time trying to create an image with none of their time actually doing the groundwork to create the foundation that needs to be there for that job or that role or that company or whatever it is. So sometimes people's confidence is well-deserved, right? People have earned it. They've done amazing work. They've done amazing jobs. They've created interesting products. They've contributed a lot to a team, and they have a healthy estimation of themselves, and a positive view of their role in the team and they're part of the company. But then you need to look at that empathy and intimacy too, right? So can someone have a healthy self-image, a healthy understanding of themselves and the positive good things that they do, which actually exist and happen, and how that fits within a team, right? So understanding their own value, but also understanding and empathetically appreciating the value that other people bring, the knowledge that other people share. When it's a really successful team project, saying, oh, this is great, we absolutely smashed this. I played an important role in that, but I understand the contributions everyone else made, and I understand the value of recognizing and appreciating that. So sometimes people who are too high on this confidence have trouble doing that because they see that as a threat. They see other people's success as threatening to their own and see it as a zero-sum game where only one person can be the best, only one person can be the successful person in a team, in a role, in a company. So other people's success is actually a threat to their self-image as the best, the superior person, the absolute winner out of a team of whoever, people that they don't care about because they don't have that empathy, they don't have that ability to build mutually beneficial relationships. And relationships tend to be entirely self-serving and only of interest to that person when they serve that image of themselves or the company. So confidence is an interesting one that I've talked about a lot before in videos because it's really about understanding where that role is and where that realistic expectation of your own abilities and capabilities are, and having that realistic understanding that you share with other people, and that you can be fairly sensitive to feedback or constructive criticism because that's working towards mutual improvement. It's not a threat to you individually, right? Any criticism isn't a threat to your abilities or your capabilities. It's something you can use to make better. It's one of the reasons that people with excessively high confidence, especially in this trait, sometimes have trouble learning and developing, because instead of being able to take on new information that doesn't match who they think they are, they deflect it, or they get away from it, or they fire or remove or get rid of or spread rumors about people who they see as a threat to them and their image that they're trying to create. Now, it's interesting getting that balance and figuring out who has enough capability and ability to do a job very well, but also has a realistic expectation and a healthy understanding of themselves, and that criticism is not a direct threat to their job or their ability to get it done. So making sure that they can develop relationships alongside having a healthy and realistic level of confidence that matches their abilities is important for a team.